Hey, Jonathan from NorfolkFXTrader.com. In today's video, I'm going to be covering all about the use of the line chart and the combination of supply and demand and how it's going to be able to help you to identify those turning points and those zones of supply and demand much easier. By the end of this video, you're going to have a working strategy with the use of supply and demand and the use of line charts. So let's get straight into this video and we'll go through why line charts is going to help you with supply and demand. Now hopefully you've already been through those previous videos on how to draw and identify supply and demand zones. If you haven't already done so, I'll leave the links above now so you can go through and watch those videos. Now the idea of the use of a line chart, which we'll go through on a price chart afterwards to demonstrate how you can easily identify turning points with the use of a line chart, is when we have a price chart, you have either a bar chart, you can have a candle chart, and you can have a line chart. Now the most used type of trading is the candlestick pattern chart. Most people will be using a candlestick chart to trade with. Now with this, you're going to be using a combination of the candlestick and the line chart. Now the line chart is going to give you an added benefit of how you can determine the quickness of the reversal in the market and even to determine the trends. That goes back to a previous video that we just done, understanding the trends in the market. Now if you haven't watched that video, make sure you go back and watch that video after this video. So the understanding of the line chart, let's now go through what a line chart will look like. Now the line chart was basically going to show you the same type of price action as you would see with a trend. So when you're seeing a trend doing this and you mark out some trend lines to show you that trend, that's what a line chart is going to look like. And the line chart is easily going to identify you when we see price breaking those highs, creating these new higher lows in the market. It's as simple as that. The line chart will show you those major turning points. Now on a line chart, it's not always going to be as simple as we see here, because on a line chart, we'll often see this type of price on the line chart. It's all over the place. So how do you understand and determine those major turning points? Well, these smaller areas that you're going to see, you are going to basically ignore. You want to see those major reversal points. These major reversal points in the market where you see the actual big bounce and you see the removal of a previous area of supply or demand. That's how you're going to determine this being an area of demand, this larger area being an area of supply. And the same here, this will be an area of demand. Once you understand how a line chart moves and how you can draw your zones at those major turning points on the charts, then you will be able to understand why a line chart will be much easier to determine. Now obviously drawing on the whiteboard is very hard to draw a line chart, mainly because the line chart will follow the open and close prices of a candlestick or bar chart. So it's going to be easier for me to go over now to a price chart and to demonstrate to you exactly how you will look at using the line chart with a supply and demand methodology approach. So let's now head over to the charts and we'll go through exactly how you can use this in your trading. So how do we use the line chart in combination with supply and demand? Now if you've been through that previous video of how to determine those trends, you'll have a good idea how to determine the trend in the market. Now the use of the line chart will help you to find those turning points and identify a trend as well. So that's another way you can look to identify the trend. So we go to the tool and we place on a line chart. Now you can see how this line chart is showing you the uptrend motion in the market and the retracement before we go higher. It's also going to show you when the market is sideways. So it's a great tool to use on its own to determine the market. You can see we're in a long-term downtrend. We have a sharp push to downside, rally back up, pull back, continue up. Now how do you use this with the use of supply and demand? Well, it's quite simple. We're going to mark off those highs and lows. We have this high point here we have a low here in the market, we have a low, a high, and again you can see we have areas in the market where we continue to make those points, and these are the points in the market you will look for those areas of supply and demand. When we see the big move up like this, you would only then mark off this high like so. Now obviously you wouldn't mark the last one off until you've seen a removal, so you'd actually leave this one off. But it's here where we see demand zone, demand zone, demand zone, demand zone, demand zone, demand zone, demand zone. These are just previous highs that have been removed, where you can create and draw your areas of demand. The same will be applied when you're looking at these areas of supply. The major turning points in the market is when you see this low removed, this creates areas of supply. When you see this low removed, this creates supply. See this low removed, this creates supply. These are the major turning points in the trend. And that's how you'll be able to determine where the best areas of supply and demand are. Now, of course, you can also apply trend lines on these charts, like we went through in a previous video with how to determine the trend. You can actually use the line chart to mark your trend line in the chart. Let me just go closer to this area. You could mark off these lower highs with a trend line. Once you've seen that break to the upside, you could draw your area of demand here. Now obviously you need to go to a price chart to actually draw that area of demand, as I went through on how to draw those zones. So that is how you would look to use the line chart. The line chart is going to give you the ability to quickly identify these areas on the chart. It's going to allow you to identify this motion in the chart where these areas of demand are being created. And obviously you'll be able to see where the market moves sideways. You'll be looking to only mark these zones out once these highs have been broken. We can see that even if you use the lower areas, we can see these little higher lows are being formed. These are what we call those areas where the rally base rally. And as I said in a previous video, this is going to be something you'll learn later on, how you can use, identify and trade with the types of patterns in the market. But the use of a line chart is going to help you to identify those higher lows where areas of demand are. But you are not going to draw those demand zones until you see the highs broken. So if we go into this area down here on the chart, I'm going to zoom in. When we see this area, I'm going to use a line now. When we see this low formed, it's once this high is broken, we'll draw an area of demand. So let's go back to price. And we could draw this area of demand. Now if we go back to the line chart, again, once we see this pullback, waiting for this high to be removed, which is removed right there, we can draw the next area of demand. We would draw this area of demand, and then again you go back to your line chart and you look for the same pattern. We rally up, we pull back. Once this high is removed, you would draw your next area of demand. This is your next area of demand, and so on and so on. Now sometimes you're not going to see the rally base, rally drop base drop patterns, which you'll learn later on, but the idea is to give you the best looking areas to mark out your zones. And right there was a great opportunity when this candle pulled back into an area of demand where you could have caught a great entry. So that is the easiest way to identify zones in the market when you're using line charts with supply and demand. Now, this can be applied to what I call a top-down analysis as well. You can start with a monthly time frame, identify with the use of a line chart where your last area of demand would sit. This is our last area of demand. It's removed the previous area of supply here. This will be our last area of demand. So you know you've got a supply zone up here, a demand zone down here. Again, you'd have to go to a price chart where you can mark off those areas. Now I can remove that quickly with a price chart. This will be your area of demand. This will be your area of supply. So we now know exactly by using a line chart how to find those zones. You would do the same thing going down each time frame. That is called a top-down analysis. Now you'll understand how I do my top-down analysis in a future video coming very soon. So that is the simplest way to identify supply and demand zones if you find it difficult. If you found that determining the trend was harder, use a line chart. It's a simple method to apply with supply and demand. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope this video has helped you to understand how you can use the line chart with your trading of supply and demand. Now remember, make sure you understand how to determine the trend if you're going to use a line chart to look for that trend with the use of supply and demand. So again, if you haven't already seen the video on how to determine trends in the market, make sure you watch the previous video, and that will be at the end of this video. Now, of course, if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you've enjoyed today's content and you've got some great value from this video, make sure you like my video today and subscribe to the channel, because then you'll be able to be notified the next time I release the next video. Now, talking of the next video basically is going to be all about those best time frames to use to trade with a supply and demand methodology. So if you want to now take the next step and start learning how you can apply supply and demand with different time frames, then you want to watch and capture the next video which is coming out. Now remember, if you are still here watching this video right now, then you are those 1% who is now still watching this video, and you already are 1% closer than anybody else out there, because you now understand you're going to that next video to now determine which is the best time frame to start trading with a supply and demand methodology. So I thank you for watching this video today, and I will see you in the next video.